Hey, I'd like to dedicate the following video to Phil Lesh. He passed away yesterday, October 25th, 2024. I spent a good portion of my teens and 20s following Phil Lesh's band, the Grateful Dead, around the country. Was fortunate enough to make it to Europe in 90 and see those shows. Spent many a summer living out of my car, doing summer tours. I lived in California for up through like 93. So that was a good 20, 25 shows a year on the West Coast, between Oregon, shows in like Vegas, shows in Arizona. Um, so yeah, I saw this band uh, a dozen dozens a dozen dozens minus one was the number of times I was able to see that band. And many of the shows on the West Coast, if you showed up at the venue at like 6 in the morning, sometimes earlier, we did this priority seating thing where you would get a ticket and they would let you in early. We did those things and we would try to get on the rail on the wall and we'd go right in front of Phil, right in the Phil zone. So yeah, these people are going to pass away someday, but when they do, it's always tough. Um, Never met the man. Was able to meet several other band members in weird places throughout the years. Never actually met Phil, but yeah, his music has had an incredible influence on my life. Just in the past, 12 hours. Um, I've heard from people I haven't heard from in years. I'm going to see people I haven't seen in years simply because, we're gonna reminisce and celebrate his life. So it's cool. So I dedicate this following video of what is a very, very good release and a very, very good show to Mr. Phil Lesh. So thank you, Phil, for everything you've done for me and a lot of my friends over the years. All right, on to the music, or on to my review and raving of the music. What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie. Today, going to take a short little deep dive into Grateful Dead 1981. I'm going to review a couple shows. They've only released 4 shows from 81, officially released live shows. We're going to start off with Madison Square Garden, New York, New York, March 9th, 1981. This was they released these box sets of shows. They did a Madison Square Garden box set, which had shows from 81, 82, 83, all from MSG here in the States. And this was sort of, they pull a one show and they release that separately, apart from the box set. This was the show that was released apart from that box set. There was one more 81 show in there the following night. That'll be my next review. They've only done one Dick's picks from 81 and one Dave's picks from 81. So I will drop a list of where I would rank all those at the end of this. But this release is amazing. This is one of those where I'm like, if you want to get into the Dead and you want to check out the Dead and you haven't, I would recommend this release. I think this is that strong of a release. Personally, as a Dead fan, as someone who in recent months has spent a lot of time listening to 74 shows, 77 shows, some 71 shows at one point because of the Dave's Picks release. It was really nice to get into the 80s, into the Brett Mydland era. His sound, his keyboard sounds, his organ sound is providing a lot of just different flavors to the Dead, plus the songs that both are there now because Mydland had a part in writing them and being a part of the albums that they come from, and also because they're just bringing back songs that they had not played for a good part of the 70s. So there are so many incredible things to love about this release, and I really think there are 5 things that for me absolutely stand out and make this just such a compelling listen. The first thing is the opening 3 songs. Feel Like a Stranger. We're getting just that healthy dose of funky jamming that comes at the end of Feel Like a Stranger. Into Althea, which is just such a grand, stately, some of the best lyrics Hunter has ever done. Jerry's coupling of the lyrics with just the way the song is laid out, fantastic. And then a cover of CC Rider, which was really big in the early 80s. I think 81 had the most CC Riders out of any year. But just such a great Bob cover song, kind of different from some of his other stuff. Great. That's number 1 and just the awesome, one of the reasons to love this release. 2, there's a deep Ellen blues in the first set. That alone, fantastic. Three, Birdsong is back, people. Birdsong came back in the 80s. And when they, beautiful, this one. As soon as they get to the improv section, Jerry is just ready to fly, just takes off. It is so awesome to hear Birdsong back. First set, those are all first set reasons that this is almost like a mandatory purchase. Get to set 2, we get a China Cat Sunflower. Arguably, one of the top 5 sunflowers of all time for the Dead. This is like a 9.5-minute China Cat. Does not have a Feeling Groovy jam in it. I think maybe the other 4 are probably all from 73, 74. Probably something from the 80s. It maybe compares to this. But this China Cat is just, that jam at the end, it is just, I've always thought of the China Cat Sunflower jams as being saturated with really really Skittle-esque colors of just psychedelia, and you get a really long, healthy jam in which they're just soaked in like psychedelic flavors and just vibrant colors. And as someone who saw the Dead many times throughout the years, like the beginning of the second set, like the opening song through drums, generally correlates to certain experiences. I'm trying to dance around this without getting explicit, but it's probably the trippiest part of any show for lots of reasons. And this China Cat Sunflower is just pure improvisational bliss. I mean, a top 5, like I know one for sure that I would rank as number 1. There's a Dick's Picks out there that is probably my favorite, but this fantastic China Rider. And then probably the number 5 reason, and there's other good reasons, but my number 5 is Uncle John's. Uncle John's is now back in regular rotation. This one is just so well jammed out. They're having such a good time playing with it. The end jam, they kind of try to go back. They get so far out there and so far removed from what Uncle John's band is. At the end of it, they try to like come back. Like Jerry tries to force us back into like the Uncle John's band, sort of like those final, that kind of last vocal reprise, and they just can't do it. They just can't find the map back. They're like so lost out in space that like, okay, never mind. Let's just go back into drums. It's just absolutely amazing. But yeah, those 5 reasons are, it's a great show from start to finish. So those are just 5 reasons that jump out. It's a 3-disc set. The first set is the entirety of disc 1. Like I said, it opens up with the Feel Like a Stranger, Althea, CC Rider. The Feel Like a Stranger, you can still tell they're trying to figure this one out. Jerry's playing that theme that they usually play at the end of the jam before they go back, like before they wrap up the song. Jerry's really messing around with that melody a lot early in the solo. Like he doesn't really know what to do, and then he abandons it and just takes off into great space. It doesn't quite have the sort of gear shifting fluidity as the Without a Net version, which I think is one of the best versions of this song. But it's dark, it's aggressive, it's just that fragmented funk that Feel Like a Stranger delivers just so perfectly. Althea, absolutely perfect. The closing solo on this is just magnificent. This is a song that I do think would gain in sort of just confidence over the years. We're still kind of in a relatively early phase of it, but it's still just absolutely beautiful. And CC Rider, just great. Jerry's great. Mydland's organ solo is fantastic. It's a really nice, healthy CC Rider. Ramble on Rose is great. Mydland's adding a little extra just flavors with his keyboard work. We get an El Paso. We get a fantastic deep Ellen blues. There's just a little bit of swagger in this, a little bit of swing in this. It's really nice deep Ellen. We get a 6-beat intro, Beat It On Down the Line. Dun, 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 dun. Well, this job, 6 beats as the intro. Trying to keep track of those beats. Birdsong, just absolutely amazing. It's got a bounce to it. It's got a vibrancy to it. You can almost feel like during the opening verses, Jerry is just like waiting for somebody to open the door to the cage so he can just take off and soar, which as soon as I get to the part, Jerry is just off and soaring. It's just absolutely beautiful. Nice, very jazzy bounce to it. Once Jerry gets way out there, he starts to get like some psyche undertones in there. Kind of gets a little dirty at times. And then as we're heading back into like the final verses, he starts doing that kind of spirally playing, that sort of crazy fingers type, like psychedelic hypnotic type thing that like works really well on like a crazy fingers. Jerry starts doing a little bit of that before we go back into the final verses. A beautiful 11 plus minutes bird song. And then we close the first set with a New Minglewood Blues, which, you know, weird little set closer, but it works. I think the highlight of this is Mydland's solo is not an organ solo. He's playing organ like through the verses, but his solo is this weird synthy keyboard sound that kind of gives the song a completely different vibe, but it works. A surprisingly strong and effective closer for the first set with the New Minglewood Blues. Disc 2, 4 songs from the second set. We got a China Cat Sunflower, one of the best China Cat Sunflowers ever. It's epic. It goes so far out there, but it stays pure to sort of the China Cat, blissfully ecstatic and joyful and exploratory psych energy that I think makes this one of the most sort of uniquely Grateful Dead-esque jams. It's just absolutely fascinating, just absolutely amazing. And then the writer that follows takes this energy and just carries it along with it. Samson and Delilah follows, and they are playing, Billy and Mickey are playing that drum beat even before they finish the I Know You Rider. Like, we are jumping right into this. Jerry's got some nice, pretty intense runs. It's pretty straightforward, Samson, but everybody's clicking on all cylinders, and it's just the energy's good. And then we get a Ship of Fools, which I'm a big fan. As I've gotten older, the lyrics, especially to Ship of Fools, have resonated more with me. And I don't think I've heard a Ship of Fools from this era for a while. And I do think one of the problems with it in this new era is the sound of some of Mydland's keyboards. There's just a little bit of maybe a cheesy disconnect that maybe is the reason why I was not a fan of this until I got older. And then I really became a fan of it listening to like 70s versions, like first half of the 70s. So that might be, why I came around late. And I do think a little of the keyboard sounds on here, I'm like, it's not clicking. It's a little bit too cheesy. Estimated Profit. Fantastic. And I have this theory. There are certain songs that in my experience seeing the Dead, Estimated Profit is one of them. Sometimes the jams and Scarlet Begonias are one. Playing in the Band is definitely one. This is it from my era, like late 80s, which I always felt like Jerry would like start soloing and he would reach a point where he'd be like, all right, now we're going to really delve deep into your psyche and like go to some darker things and maybe make it a little more unsettling and disturbing for you. That's what this Estimated Profit does. Like Jerry takes off early. He's just really fluid and he's really into it. But about a minute and a half in it, you can tell he's just like, all right, let's get a little nasty. Let's get a little psychier. Let's get a little more unpredictable. And the vibe, it's still fluid, but there's an anxiety that kind of seeps in, like a tenseness that seeps in that is highly effective. And it's what makes like the Estimated Profit solos, when they are good, I think next level good. And it just feels like you're uncomfortable at times. And I remember just being at shows where I'm all of a sudden, you're listening to like an Estimated and, during Dead shows, everybody's standing up and everybody's dancing and very few people are ever sitting down. And you kind of get lost in, whatever's happening. And there are almost always moments in the best Estimated where you're just like, whoa, this kind of got dark and intense. And I feel that's what this one does. But then before we get to the end, before we make this kind of weird transition to Uncle John's Band, things get really calm and like really chill and really just relaxing. And then all of a sudden we get kind of dancey and a little more like, okay, we're going to celebrate the fact that we made it through this. And then we're off into a fantastic Uncle John's Band. Just the galloping communal joy of an Uncle John's Band. Another, just to me, an iconic Grateful Dead song that just is just the epitome of what the Dead communal experience was like. Go to many, many shows over the years and you see the same people. And there are people I probably never had conversations with that I saw at like dozens of shows that I would wave to and maybe be like, hey, what's up? Do you have a good show? But like, just, it really was an experience like no other. And this is one of those Uncle John's bands that joy and that community and that just feeling of like, we're in this experience together. It shines through on this Uncle John's band. And then the jams, you can tell the band is just enjoying this. They're exploring, they're pushing the boundaries of what an Uncle John's band can be. It's a pretty deep, dark exploration. We go so out there, far removed from like a normal Uncle John's band jam at this point. They literally have a hard time getting back to it, and so they don't, and they go into drums. We get a drums, we get a space. Pretty sure Mickey stays out for the entirety of space. He's playing a little like hand drum for the entire time. We're getting some like KC, King Crimson, dark energy in space that very much kind of lets you know we're heading in towards the other one direction. Sometimes it gets dark and they don't go into the other one and you're disappointed. This one gets a little KC, like just that weird, like the 74 Fripp runs and late 73 when they would do those improvs. That's the kind of vibe we're getting. And then we go into the other one. And before I ever got into tapes, I'd seen a bunch of Dead shows. And this was in the like the second half of the 80s. And the other ones in the second half of the 80s are pretty straightforward, just pedal to the metal, high adrenaline jams. They're usually anywhere from like 8 to 10 minutes long. We don't get these deep space sections. We don't get a feedback section. We generally don't get like other jams dropped into the other one. It's usually just like 8 straightforward minutes of hard-boiled, intense playing. And to me, that's sort of like the core of what the other one is. It's like if you make like a cooking show and everybody has to use the same protein, right? And they're all making different versions of kind of the same dish, but the protein is the same. To me, the other one, the protein of the other one for me, because of my experience, is this kind of the other one. And it's really nice to be back where it's just 8 intense minutes of just straightforward, like, just go, Jerry. Fill as many runs as you can, as many bass runs as you can drop. Phil's bass run out of this kind of comes out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden they're in space, and all of a sudden feels like everybody's like, oh wait, we're caught off guard a little bit, but then they quickly get into it. After the second verse, it's like an immediate drop off into this really kind of chill exploration that just, it's kind of abrupt, but it's kind of cool also, kind of beautiful for a little bit. Then we go into a really good Stella Blue, which kind of has the exact same thing. At the end of Stella Blue, all of a sudden they just drop into this really, really, really gorgeous, maybe 45 seconds to a minute of playing that is just, doesn't feel connected to Stella Blue. Definitely doesn't feel connected to the song that follows, but it's just absolutely amazing stuff. And then we get a Good Lovin', not a fan of Good Lovin', and a US Blues that pretty rough. Vocals for the first half of US Blues are pretty rough, but they kind of, the energy's good. They kind of save it by the end. But this is a fantastic show. Feel Like a Stranger, Althea, CC Rider, Deep Ellum, Bird Song, one of the best Chinas ever. A fantastic Bird Song. Amazing, the other one. Uncle John's Band. Might be I think my favorite Uncle John's Band is still the Dick's Picks Volume 5. I think it's from a late 79 show. Just absolutely, I think one of the most perfectly fluid and beautiful and just effortless versions of that. That first jam between the second and third verses is just perfection. This ranks up there with one of the best Uncle John's band. This is also maybe a top 5 Uncle John's. But yeah, man, I highly, 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 highly recommend this show. Where would I rank it among the other 81 shows that have been released? 1. Easily. That Dick's Picks Volume 13 is also really good. I think that's the one that has the He's Gone into a fantastic caution jam that's absolutely amazing. And then the Dave's Picks Volume 20 is also pretty good, but I don't think doesn't quite have those, what might be argued as like top 5, top 10 moments, as I think the Dick's Picks and definitely the MSG shows have. But the 81's releases are good. Got one more 81 show. I'm going to do the March 10th show next. That was also in the box set. And then, move on to late 80s and see how they're doing towards the end of the Mydland run before we might hit a Welnick year. So Anyways, but that's it. That's all I got. Let me know your thoughts on this show, on the dead. Uh, Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do those things, and peace. Talk to you later.